take a few questions from the plenary. Welcome.
Thank you very much. The key thing about changing lives in the country, and the thing that we really think that we should push towards, is not just digitizing but going to be fast. If we implement a decentralized digital identity, for instance, as he has said, we would be pretty much the first country in Africa, but also pretty much top 5 in the world in implementing a fully decentralized digital identity. Right now, even the EU are struggling with regulations on how a decentralized digital identity is going to be fully implemented within the infrastructure. So this is a good push for this. So as I was asked to speak, one thing that I want to do, at least during this particular session, is do 2 things. Number one is maybe take a few questions, especially from the younger players in the room. And I've gotten quite a few questions while having lunch and different conversations. And the big part that everybody is asking is, how do you get from 0 to where you are at this particular point? And it's been a huge conversation that I've had with quite a few people. So what I want to do is, number one, if we can get a few questions from the team, and I want to explain quite a few things while those questions and while those sentiments are coming over. When we started out, a big part, and I'm happy the PS is here, a big conversation that everybody keeps asking PS is, how many government jobs can young citizens actually get in terms within the digital space? It's been a very interesting conversation when you talk to even some of the students who are building apps inside the team, and they don't understand what does it take to come from 0, where most of them hear that people are getting some sort of financing, they are getting some sort of help from international donors. So for instance, they'll say, companies in the country have raised millions of dollars and such things, but if we don't have an infrastructure to actually raise money, how do you come from 0 till 8? So I'll give you a bit of a story, and part of continuation for what we were discussing yesterday. So in early 2014, when eCitizen was launched the first time, of course, there wasn't a big launch as that. It was mostly get 10 services running. A big thing that happened around that particular time was that we had a team of about, I think, 7-8 people within our team at the time. So it was myself and pretty much the founders that I displayed yesterday. I think that we didn't know. At those days, I never used to wear suits, by the way. This is it's a very late thing. We used to be in hoodies and we used to be behind our desk and we were just typing code. We never stopped at any one time to think that we needed to make money. So there's a very weird thing that happens around the time when you're doing startups, is that only the businessmen think that you need to. Heavy determination. I remember yesterday I was saying there are a couple of ingredients within agency. Number one is determination, and we were very determined and said, look, if we build this, maybe government will be able to give us a transaction fee and X. Now, first track, after the pilot took some time, government said, look, we want to regularize. This is around 2016 and the end of 2017. We had grown our team. We were now from 7, we had grown to 60 people. At 60 people, government then decided, look, as regularization, you guys can no longer charge this as a payment charge. This money is all going into government. And this is a story we don't tell often, but at that particular thing, the amount of money that actually was collected that we thought we would be able to survive with, at the end of the pilot was cut off completely. So we were not receiving any money from government. Now, when you don't receive any money from government, you have employees. Now, if you do the math, 60 minus 57 is about 53. Those 53 people want to be fed. The first thing that they do is start getting staff demand letters. Some of them took us to court. And unfortunately, at some point, we had to let the whole office go. So in 2017, thereabouts, we let the whole office go. We went back to being the 7 guys who were there originally. Now, when you're back to being 7 people, certain things now become a problem. You go back to becoming support. That means that the people who used to pick up phone calls to be able to receive and to be able to tell or help customers within that particular service, you then become that particular person. So your number is shared to whether it's NTSA and all these particular parties, and that's when you know the true test of a man, where at that particular point you don't have anywhere to go run to. Now you have to either choose two things: either keep the services going, in this particular case, or go and tell government, look, we can't keep these services going. Now remember, in a competitive country such as ours, you're not the only one who's competing to offer these particular services. You have a whole bunch of other companies, whether local or international, who still want to offer these services. Meaning that if a pilot failed from a local company, it is very hard to bring it back home in certain ways. So two things had to happen. Either one, support had to become less. Now, initially, we built our platform using PHP. It's a programming language in this particular case. So most of us were writing code using PHP. Within 2 months after all staff members left our company, we had to change strategy. So number one, we needed to do two things. We needed to stop offering a lot of support. Now, what was causing a lot of the support issues? Number one was scale. Because we started from 10 services and we grew really quickly to 100 services, more phone calls were coming in. There were more people who were coming over and over to get these particular services, and they used to have an issue. And if you ask some of the staff members at that particular time, was that most of the issues was that, oh, when I click this button, I sent my money, but I did not receive the service. Meaning that something failed. And most of the time we thought, oh, maybe there was a server that had load at that particular time. And when you think about whether server had load and such things, we were not the ones who were procuring the servers for government. So asking for new infrastructure, yes, we could, but then we also had lost half of our team to be able to support multiple and more infrastructure. So one day while sitting down and being slightly miserable because there was no money in any of these conversations, the team sat around the team and they said, look, let's rebuild everything in eCitizen for it to survive for the next X years until we get to the perpetual end of the pilot where the government actually has an engagement with us. And since we are Kenyans, and Kenyans in the first place we would not accept that, look, a Kenyan company fails just because there was a financial decline or there was no money at the end of that particular journey. So what we spent time doing is two things. We rewrote the whole of the eCitizen platform. Every single line of code from PHP to Elixir. Now, Elixir and Erlang are two very interesting languages in programming, and I'll tell you this. Number one, they're the only languages that are built on top of a framework called OTP, and OTP is the same framework that runs phone calls for networks like Ericsson, where they spend it does so much in terms of reducing the load on a server that you would be almost at a negative load if you compared between what you would consume from PHP and Elixir. Now, we were the only ones who actually knew how to write the language at the time, or some of us didn't even know. I remember the first time Larry got this conversation, he said, look, we need to rewrite everything. If we don't rewrite everything, bit pattern would crash and nobody would ever know about it. And we would have to go back into employment, find jobs and all these particular things. So I remember it took us almost 6 months. Now, you don't have money, but in 6 months we did rewrite everything end to end. And when we rewrote everything with Elixir, support calls went down by almost 80% at the time. And everybody who was calling at the later on was mostly service requests from government. I say this because of two things. If you don't take time to understand that platform needs to scale. Number two is that money is an eventuality in most of these businesses that we do from a software perspective. You then do struggle to know when does government actually come and give me money for the services that are being offered. So I was sitting in lunchtime with Gentleman called Rob, and he was telling me, look, I'm doing a lot of things for Uasin County, and I'm not sure how we convert this and we get the larger contracts. For instance, the county uses SAP in a certain case, and we also have an ERP that we think we could also get used in the county. Now, my simple advice is that you have to be able to run a pilot to know that your system is better than SAP's in one way. There's no free lunches in this country, whether from government or from the private sector. But number two, you have to experience two things. You have to experience the time that you are going to need to build a team to be able to support that county in certain ways, but you also need to make sure that your product in any particular way would be able to scale up to the levels that those international companies are going to do. Now, remember, we live in a country where everybody has access to internet. That means they can be able to go into eCitizen and they're able to go into WhatsApp. And the learners ask you a question, why does WhatsApp do this and your app doesn't do this? And so a big part is you're no longer competing with the developer down the street, you're competing with everybody else within the market. So a huge thing that has happened within our journey and between the time that we left 2017 and waited and grew. So in 2018, what we did was a very important thing. We then started saying, look, we've already fixed everything in Kenya. It's pretty much running in the way it's going to be, and it's growing. And our implementation team was one man, Larry ago in this particular case. He used to spend a lot of time in government offices. Now, while we were still supporting the pilot for eCitizen, we then started implementing systems in other countries. And we've done quite a few countries in Africa where you would be able to see pretty much if you log into some of the systems, you'd be able to see that this was done by ourselves. And we have partners in those countries that are offering that particular service. And that's how we managed to survive between 2017 to 2022. When government changed, and then with 2023, I remember one thing that happened late 2022 or early 2023 is that we're lucky enough to meet, and this is where luck sometimes plays a role. We met His Excellency, the President, and one thing he did for us is he asked a very simple question. Young man, you guys have been here for this whole time. What wanasema nyinyi ni wakora? He asked this question. And watu wanasema nyinyi ni wakora because they don't understand what you guys are doing and how you're able to survive all this time while keeping a system for government running without having, and you're saying that you're in pilot without having an official contract with government. So yeah, of course, you smile and you tell the president, look, there is no way that we could have let this platform go down, because in any particular way, if it went down today, we would never have the work that we needed to do. At that time, luckily, we had gotten a couple of countries that were consuming our products. We had grown the team back up considerably, maybe to about 150 people in that period between 2017 and 2014. So he asked a very simple question. Now, if you guys had the chance right now to implement this service to its fullest of ideas, how many services can you bring on board? Of course, being the ambitious young man that I am in that particular case, I do tell him, look, we can do this 5,000 services in 6 months. He looks at me, he smiles. No, I said 4,000 services in 6 months. He looks at me, he smiles. Then he says, no, can you do 5,000? I say, yes, we can do 5,000. And he says, okay. If you can do 5,000 in 6 months, that is the rope that you're going to hang yourself on. So he said, if you guys are really, really sure about your skill and what you can get done, go and implement. You've done it for the last 10 years. You've done it without pay. You can also do 5,000 services without pay. Well, I'm saying 5,000 services without pay. The first 5,000 batches of services were based on the fact that government was, can we sign a transition agreement as we then onboard you onto the platform. So PS was there. We signed a transition agreement with government. We handed over all our intellectual properties to government, everything. And we said, look, since all we're asking is allow us to keep our source code so that we can continue implementing it in other countries and to be able to spread this, because even Google is an American company, it does military contracts, but it's able to implement for other jurisdictions, other sorts of services. But at the same time, we would be able to use this transition agreement to be able to go through a whole 5,000 services. We then went and valued up a lot of young guys from the market. We grew the team in 6 months from about 150 to almost 250 people. And we went to work into ministries, into departments, into every single sector of government that we could find. With the help of Ministry of ICT, Department of State Department of Migration and Treasury, we were able to get a lot of implementation done with the ICT officers inside government on all the same thing. And what happened is that when we provide this technical support into government in this particular case, we really say like it's the same way you would have a Chinese company build a road. When the government gets a Chinese company building a road, I've seen a lot of debates online about, oh, does government actually control a citizen? I want to answer the question is that does government actually control the services on e-citizen? And that should be the question. A big part of the expertise that is driven, for instance, if we have to train Elixir to everyone, it will take years for us to get that particular expertise. But the same way, government builds a road from Nairobi to Eldoret in a certain way, and you get a contractor from, let's say, a Chinese contractor who comes in. China, we've seen Thika Road being done the same way. It's the same way a Kenyan company can support what we call the digital infrastructure within the country. And once that is noticed is that this digital infrastructure is being provided by various things. We don't provide all the software built on eCitizen. It is provided by multiple companies, by multiple people. All we do is we provide some centralized laws and some automation for specific agencies that are currently there. And that's a big thing. The reason is it changes the way the narrative goes out, where you spend so much time building certain software where most people will never know that you built that particular software. So we have a lot of young people who do that. But then eventually what happens is that you never know where it's actually going to be used. So for instance, we have like 150 implementers. Their work is to take a system called Automate, which is our automation engine. It's a framework. If you think about it, think of it as Microsoft Word. They will take Microsoft Word into multiple ministries, ask the ministry about its workflow, and they would then implement this workflow into one single, in pretty much hours or days, and they'll be able to launch that service onto eCitizen. We're pretty much one of the few companies that are able to do that in record time when it comes to that type of implementation. So we are supporting Kenya's digital infrastructure, and we are supporting it continuously every single day within the country. Thank you very much. I think I'll take any questions if there are any of them. In that, if the young generation doesn't fight for the space in this technical future, all the jobs will go outside the country. And we are here, and we're saying we're here. We have been of service, and we are ready to serve every single day.
In cybersecurity. So, with the solution that you have prepared, one thing is you had to change at some point from PHP to the new platform. From the cyber side, I know we have been going through quite a lot of challenges with the AI alone, but also looking into the future, there is the testament, or perhaps there is the real test of cyber AI, and even the solutions that you have been like the eCitizen, whereby the quantum computing, which is perhaps somewhere down the road, maybe a few years to come. I don't know whether you have considered the impact of cyber combined with AI, with quantum, to such a solution that serves masses.
I think very well loaded question, I have to say. So a big part of what engineer was saying about moving to your digital identity is most likely the only answer that you can get to quantum computing. Right now, any sort of factorization applied on any particular password will not work inwards of the next few years, because the amount of processing power that these devices are getting and the amount of time that they have to be able to run the computations that they have, all your passwords will be broken in a while. Quantum computing is here in certain ways, and it's already being experimented on for military purposes and other things. So for sure, I can tell you that they will be able to break all passwords. On top of that, with artificial intelligence, we don't know what sort of rogue algorithms people are building right now. People could be building penetration into messaging systems, into SMSC, into telcos, and all these particular things. If right now we do get situations where SIM cards are swapped in the middle of the night, imagine if somebody built a bug that could be able to just automatically swap SIM cards and inject it into the network even through normal commands from your phone. This would be completely separate. So we do know that for sure the only way at this particular moment to be safe online is to use this particular digital public infrastructure and to be able to have a decentralized identity. Own your own identity, meaning let it be sitting with you. It is your face, it is your fingerprints, it is all other sort of biometric indicators such as your iris that beacon needs to be able to secure your information and your information alone. So it's a big part of what we are encouraging in the country, and we're happy to be part of the project to be able to build this and to grow this in certain ways within the country and to bring in all the other technically powered solutions like banks, telcos, and all these to be able to participate in that same journey. So we are really, really keen into getting this done. But you're right, quantum computing will be able to crack your password because most of the people use their birthdays or their mother's birthdays, and to be able to use it as their password. So or your child's birthday, or a combination of the two. So most people don't use password locks and all these other apps that can actually help you generate better passwords.
Wow, amazing. A big round of applause for Evid.